Hi, dog.
Hello, good morning. How are you?
I'm all good. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Very excited to welcome you to an episode of Ask the Expert, and very excited for today's topic, which is careers in journalism. Because as I was watching the other ones, I think they all kind of touched on it, but weren't able to go into more depth. So we're just picking up where they left off.
Sure.
And I think something important to keep in mind, though, for those who are watching will probably be that I'm sure you would agree a career in journalism can take very, very many different forms.
Indeed.
So today I will be asking you, Doug, a bit about your experience and your advice for us. But obviously, no career in journalism is like the other, and maybe that's the beauty of it.
Okay.
So just for some context, your current title is Editor Emeritus at the Evening Standard and the Independent. Would you just like to tell us a bit about how long you worked there and what it is that you do?
Yeah, sure. Okay, that is my current title, fairly new one. And what it means is that I represent the paper Outlooking in the industry. I'm on the board of the Society of Editors and chairman of the London Press Club. And I'm very much focused on the campaigns. And at the moment, we have the huge campaign, which is Feed London Now, which has raised £10 million. Over the last 9 months, which is an indication of the power of the press in many ways. But for 15 years, right up until a month or so ago, I was managing editor of the titles, and particularly the Evening Standard. And that's basically keeping the train on the track. It's coordinating all the departments, the editors of sport, business, news, and working also with the business, that's the circulation department, the printers, the all-important commercial department who pay our wages, they tell us, and coordinating the operation. And that has seen a few changes over those years.
And when you were about my age, is this what you saw yourself doing in the future? Was it always going to be journalism? Or
that's a good question. No, I never saw this sort of thing that I have been doing anywhere in the future, because when I was a teenager, in fact, always, football was my passion, and I wanted to be a footballer. And so when it was broken to me that I would never be a professional, I thought about being a sports reporter, because that was combined my interests of writing English and sport. So I dreamt that I'd be a sports reporter, and I never did, actually, because I managed to get a job, and I love news. So that I never saw myself ending up doing this.
Did you start off with working in student journalism, or what would be your first step into?
I was lucky, and there's been a renaissance of this. I went into journalism as an apprentice, and I went straight from school to a local weekly newspaper, but tied in with the NCTJ, National Council for Training of Journalists, training scheme. So I worked for a few months at the paper, getting experience, and then I went on a block release course at the college. Basically, it's like a postgrad journalism course now, but it was split up into sections, several months at a time, several months back at working, then several months back at working. So that's how I came into journalism. And there are similar schemes that have come back in recent years and are available.
That's good, because I wanted to ask you actually about advice for sort of taking that step, because I reckon most people watching this will be around my age and currently involved in student media, maybe interested in journalism, but now we're sort of looking to take that first step into a career, maybe getting our first piece of work published or getting our first internship, the first job. So what kind of advice do you have to take that step?
I think the first is the hard decision. Do you really want to do this? And even if you're not 100% sure, there should be some sort of burning passion, a burning interest in a couple of things. One is communicating. The other is getting under the skin of things, telling it as it is, and maybe writing. But funnily enough, writing is not always the thing that gets people career. The writing is something that everybody says they want to be a writer, but communicating and writing are not necessarily the same package. So how to do it? Well, have that passion and then start doing it. Start writing, producing vlogs, blogs, any form of communication through, if you're at university or at a college, do it. Yes, it's a good thing to do, use a structure that's and write and with a student magazine or a student blog or a student website. But if you're not at university, hey, set one up yourself. I know people who've set up magazines and set up very successful magazines themselves, but they've just done it initially as a project and set up your own blog. And it certainly, whatever you're doing, go and do it. And then you'll find out whether it's your thing. And it's absolutely essential that roll on a while, people will say, hey, they've done that. They're into it. They've got commitment.
I think you're very right, because with journalism, what I've found is that we sort of need to go out there and look for those opportunities and maybe create those ourselves. I know for a lot of other fields, you have this sort of prefabricated application. So you do this form and then you send your cover letter, you send your CV, and then you do the interview and then you're there. Whereas for journalism, I think we need to go out there and kind of look for these opportunities.
Yeah.
I mean, you're an editor yourself, so do you get a lot of people approaching you with, say, resumes or pitches?
Yes, we do. And that's always been the way. And it's encouraging to me that we still do, because people generally in the media ourselves, sometimes we talk down the media in that everything's changing and social media everywhere. Is there a future for traditional journalism, for professional journalists? I believe, yes, there is a future. And yes, it's never been more important. But it's actually shown that that's a wide belief, because we still get many applications, and also many applications for postgrad journalism courses, or indeed journalism course at university. So yes, there's an interest. How do we individuals sort out who we would look for? First of all, we have to have an opportunity and we have to have a vacancy or a opening for journalism and in training. And these are still there, but they're possibly fewer just at this moment because of the whole economy and everything that's going on. But hey, if there's one position, somebody's got to get appointed. So go for it. What sorts of wheat from the chaff? Something different, something that somebody has just shown they've got commitment in the way that I was describing earlier. And yes, write a pithy, possibly not necessarily amusing, but something, a letter, an email, a phone conversation that just sets you out just a little. There are many stories of people who've done this in different ways, including somebody who went on to be an editor, and but his first thing he wanted, so he turned up at the office and said he wanted to see the editor, and they said, sorry, the editor's busy. And he said, oh, wait. 3 days later, the editor, who kept walking past him, and they kept saying, who is that chap? And he said, he wants to see you. He saw him because he stayed there for 3 days. He just went every day, spent the day there, and eventually got the job. Hey, yeah, that shows dedication. That might be a bit extreme, but it gives an idea of there are different ways to get a job.
Yeah, hopefully you won't find 5 people sitting in your office tomorrow morning.
Well, I think I won't recognize them because they'll all be wearing masks.
And then when you mentioned that you really want to see dedication, would that be sort of a commitment to journalism in general, or would you like to see that people have a specific topic or a field that they are interested in? So say sometimes I hear the advice that as an aspiring journalist, you should try to find your niche as soon as possible and specialize in it, whereas other people say that it's good to keep your doors open for as long as possible. So what would be your take on that?
It's a good question, and there's possibly no single simple answer. Generally speaking, I would say it's if somebody is starting out in a career, it is likely that their career will change, their path will move, and therefore to have flexibility is important. And I think general training would be broad brush stroke. It would cover many different disciplines, if you like, and not back to my original point, not just writing. It would be certainly broadcast, doing, as I say, blogs, cutting and splicing of video. There would be a broad aspect of training. But in terms of subject, if somebody has use my passion again, a passion for science, there's no reason why they shouldn't apply for science-based jobs, but or a magazine or a broadcaster. But equally, if they have a passion for science, there's no reason why they shouldn't apply for a general apprenticeship, a general student position, a trainee position of broad publication. Don't worry about it being if one is offered a job, one wants to go into science, but is offered a job in a celebrity mag, take it. Yeah, because you'll get the disciplines and the training of journalism and publishing and media from a celebrity mag. And if you keep up your interest in science, then you do a parallel opportunity could come up. So don't be over fussy about following a particular line.
And when you start off as a trainee or apprentice, how much sort of creative freedom do you have? Or how much, to what extent do you get to choose what you want to cover? And to what extent is it just whatever is given to you?
Both, I would say. If my philosophy has always been, if I was asked to do something, I just did it. If somebody says, can you do this? Even if you've never done it before, say yes, and blog it, and actually just say yes and blag it rather, and do it. And as long as you've got a little bit of confidence you can do it, then do it that way. If you want to do a specific job, you want to be, back to this writer, you want to be a columnist, but you're a trainee reporter, do the reporting job, and on top of that, write columns and submit the column to the features editor who you happen to meet in the corridor, or you happen to know. Say, oh, I've done this, and you can therefore do different aspects. And it's so, yes, further your interest and do it in different ways. Opportunities will arise, and if they don't arise, make them arise.
That's really good advice. I do think though that feeling confident about producing or writing is one part of it, but then feeling confident about the subject that you're writing about and feeling like you have something to say about it is harder. And then, so when you take up a story that you don't really know much about, do you do a lot of reading and research before you get started?
Yes. A definition of an expert is somebody who knows a little bit more than you do. And therefore, if you start to read up on a subject, you'll know a little bit more than somebody who hasn't. And so you can suddenly become an expert. And yes, it is a good thing to research a little. And there are many live broadcast interviews with somebody who's asking an individual about a subject, and they plainly and blatantly don't know the subject and are embarrassed when the interviewee outsmarts them. So it's good to know a little bit more. If you're writing, it's easier, as in physically writing for a print publication, because you can research and almost cut and paste some of your newborn interest and newfound knowledge into that. So yes, don't go blindly into a subject if you're writing something in detail.
Yeah, I think it's also a responsibility maybe that journalists have to provide well-researched and accurate information. And I think even, especially now, a lot of people, my friends who maybe didn't read the news that much before, are now very religiously following the news. And I was seeing on the list of critical workers the other day that journalists are on there. Do you think this pandemic maybe has revealed a very important role of journalism?
I hope so. And that's a subject which is very near to my heart, and the Society of Editors I mentioned earlier are doing our utmost to talk up and to get support for traditional journalism, traditional publishers. And that doesn't mean written, that means mainstay publishers who are trusted. Now, with social media, it's a wonderful thing that has given everybody an opportunity, everybody a soapbox. But the defining what is true, what is accurate, is harder. And the responsibility, you used the word earlier, is absolutely important. And so we're hoping that the public, readers, viewers, will follow through on this and want to know what's really happening, what's the truth, if currently we have the virus and the mutant virus and the concerns about what is the likelihood, what is the right way of doing things. We hope that people will not follow random social media, but will follow and take advice from trusted journalists, medical specialists. You talk about specialists, medical specialists, and so forth. So yes, it is the belief and hope that journalism has found its renewed responsibilities and renewed faith in those people. It will be the public who decide, but the journalists have a responsibility to demonstrate that they can make a difference.
Do you think that maybe even if journalism continues, it might take quite a different form in the future? So The Independent, for example, went completely online in 2016. Do you think that means print journalism is sort of on its way out?
Yeah, again, you're asking good questions, and there are no simple answers to good questions. And The Independent did make that decision some 4 years ago because the print version was declining in numbers, and there was a commitment by the owners to fulfill the original promise from when it was launched of keeping it independent, responsible journalism, independent of individual political parties, and responsible journalism. And they believed that there was a following for digital. Investment went into it, and now it's got 100 million viewers, unique visitors. And that shows that things can happen. On the other side, the newspaper was launched also by our group, as it happened. And the newspaper was launched 6 years ago, 5-6 years ago. And that was launched from nothing as a print paper. And everybody said that was mad, but nobody thought that it would be successful. And indeed, it was very, very successful, and has been much sought after by other publishers and bought by other publishers. So as to things changing, yes, they will. Which direction? Who knows? That's the skill of the managements and the owners. Some will get it right, some will get it wrong. The change that's been the most significant in the last year has been a commitment and support to subscription journalism and subscription titles. The News UK, that's the Times particularly, have been very successful. The Telegraph have been successful in that recently, whereas the Guardian have gone for donations. And it's sort of not a subscription, but it's a support with people giving money as a regular amount, and subscription readers, that is. So it will change. And will social media overtake? There'll be no structure? I don't think so, but who can tell? So it will change. And get on the next train quickly, and you might be on the train that is the one that gets to its destination.
Do you personally use social media and digital platforms more, or do you still like to read physical newspapers and magazines?
I think most of us do all of it. Yes, one has to, and because all aspects of social media are instantaneous and almost addictive. Who would have thought TikTok, would have come about, and it's entertainment now as well. and particularly at the moment when none of us are allowed to go to the cinema, and we're not allowed to go to an auditorium, then social media is taking on a whole new breadth of life. So it's impossible to predict, but yes, social media is part of it. Is life. It's not part of life. It is life. It's a huge aspect of life.
And with everything that's changed, is there so is journalism what you expected it to be, or is there anything that you would really like to go back and tell your 18-year-old self?
Has it changed? Yes. Do I still enjoy it? Yes. Am I still excited by it? Absolutely. And I think that's the thing that is most people in the media enjoy it. Very few. Everybody says that journalists are cynical. Yes, but they are cynical as in their questioning. But most actually enjoy it. I've certainly, if I look back on my career, I was very, very lucky. I think very, very fortunate to get into a career that I loved and enjoyed. And that is luck, because one never knows at that time whether it is something, because you don't know what the work really is until you start doing it. I think looking back on my 18-year-old, when I was 18, I would say possibly I would have embraced social media, as in digital media as it was then, earlier than I did. I think I was one of the, as most of us in the traditional media were slow to embrace digital. But I did, and I moved around the regional press, which is again something we've not talked about, but it absolutely doesn't matter whether you're working from London or Reading, where I began my career, or Bristol, where I went to, or Cardiff, or Blackburn, or Liverpool, Aberdeen. It doesn't matter. So there's no reason to start in a major city. You can start in a small town, work to a city, and then wherever, around the world. So that's back to when I was 18. Yeah, don't worry about it. Just do the job in hand, and just get that job done well, and then take a step forward.
So you don't regret not pursuing the football star dream?
Yeah, every time I watch Arsenal lose, I say I should be on that pitch. And no, I think my career in football would probably have not been as given me as much satisfaction. So yeah, thank you for asking, but I still follow it. But no, I think the media allows people, being in the media, it allows us to criticize managers and criticize players, rather than have to go out on the pitch and show you can do better.
And what have been some of the best points in your career? So maybe the best favorite stories you've covered, or maybe just the best things that have come out of your career for yourself in general?
The phrase that's often said of journalists, you're only as good as your last story. That's a newspaper, or particularly journalists, you're only as good as your last story. So the last story, the last byline, the latest one is always the best one. I've had satisfaction from when early in my career, I was a political reporter in Berkshire for the evening paper, and I had an exclusive, which to me was like the Watergate type story, which was about at that time on a local level, but it was significant, and it changed the direction of the local authority in a major way, and embarrassed the councillors, because it showed that somebody was about to do a multi-million-pound deal, corruption questions. And that was something which even now I think I was satisfied that I did a major investigative job. change the course in the right way of things. So something like that, I think many people have something, but the last story is always the best one because you're still doing it.
So I think this is something that we've touched on throughout the whole conversation, but if you were able to summarize just shortly, why journalism?
Because you want to make a difference, you want to tell the story and be communicative, and you want to end the day satisfied that you've had a bit of fun, and that's important, and you've done a job well. And it's not many jobs where you can get the satisfaction of being pleased with what you've done, and knowing that it's a little bit pious, but you've actually made a difference. And if somebody says you've got an audience, and as in readers or viewers, and they say, I enjoyed that, then you actually walk 10 feet tall on that. And it's a good job. And as many of us say, it's better than working for a living.
Yeah, thank you, Doug. It's been very inspiring talking to you.
Okay, well, thank you. And thank you for a very good interview. And if you can follow through in the way you've carried out this interview, then I'm sure you will have an opportunity. And I wish everybody else who is embarking on a career in these difficult, challenging times the very best of luck.
Yeah, good luck, everyone.